Hello and welcome to the Arsenal BiteSize Podcast. We're back for the third episode of the preseason. This one feels very real going into the Forest game in game week 1. We'll preview that fixture as well as talk about our season expectations and what we're hoping to gain from the season ahead. So I'm, of course, FPL Nima, and I'm joined by my co-host Clayton at Clayton's AFC. We're buzzing off the Community Shield win. If you've not seen that episode, do go check it out. We live streamed it on Tuesday lunchtime. And this episode will hopefully be going out on Wednesday evening. So give it a bit of time before the fixture on Saturday. But yeah, I love the photo you've chosen for the thumbnail, Clayton. Got all the little mascots there with the first team. What are your thoughts going into the season? Are you excited? Are you anxious?
No
How
anxiety.
are you hoping?
No anxiety. I'm confident. I'm excited. I'm feeling very, very good for this season. And I think there's like underlying similarities to last season in the sense that I feel like if you're rewinding like the last two seasons, I'd say the year before last, we underlying metrics wise, once we recovered from the dodgy start, we were putting up really, really healthy numbers. We were in the battle for top 4. We unfortunately tailored off. We didn't get it. But people used that 2-month window to analyze Arsenal as a football club. Last season, we were the best team in the league for 80% of the season, in my opinion. 50 points after 19 games, I want to say it was. Breaking records, unbelievable. And like the pre-season expectations was 4th is Arsenal's ceiling. And we brushed that away. Unfortunately, a 2-month window dictated how Arsenal were perceived. I know I'm already seeing nonsense. So we finished on 84 points last season. I'm seeing nonsense like, Arsenal struggled to make top 4. And I'm just thinking, objectively, quantify that for me. Like, where are you getting this from? Because there's no evidence to suggest that, in my opinion, at all. The reasons we fell off last season, in my opinion, were injuries, lack of depth, and I would argue some mental inexperience. Now, if you're looking at those 3 problems, injuries, we've eradicated. Well, sorry, you can't eradicate injuries, but you can best case try and proactively plan for that by adding layers to your depth and quality layers. And we've absolutely done that. So we've eradicated that problem best you can. The third one, mental inexperience, that's just something that I think these players, like we saw it with the top 4, right? They used that missing out on top 4 and they went and bloody challenged for the title. I don't see how missing out on the title is going to like psychologically mess these players up. I think if anything, it's great for them and they're going to learn from it. So I just think there's lots to be excited about. I think we've been really clever with how we're approaching everything this season, recruitment, even pre-season. Like I know you touched on it in the City review pod we did, the Community Shield one, and I didn't actually go on to talk about this, but I agreed with you. And pre-season for me this summer has been a bit different to last summer. Last summer, it was like, yeah, we got our tried and tested 11. We were blowing teams away. The fluidity was
I think
there.
that Chelsea
The
win in
rhythm.
the preseason really gave us
Chelsea,
confidence.
Sevilla, yeah. This summer, I've been a little bit nervous, and I've understood we're approaching it a bit differently. Like I think last summer for us was about get your tried and tested 11, get that rhythm. This summer for me, it's about trying different systems, combinations, relationships, and I think it's understanding that with that there's going to be teething issues, right? But I think we've taken that conscious approach to do it a bit differently, knowing that last season we hit the ground running, we blitzed teams away, and while I still think we're capable of that, I think the difference is this year we're not going to run out of steam, and even if there are injuries, we've got
we sprinted in a marathon, right? Like we were sprinting to secure top 4 after like 7 seasons.
Yeah.
And then before we knew it, we were in a position where we were leading the race for first rather than just top 4.
Exactly.
It's like we basically like we were a marathon runner that just went way ahead of pace.
Yeah.
And then did burn out when the injuries came. And I'm hoping with the added depth and kind of ceiling raisers in the club now, we will be able to kind of continue this. And I think when you look at players like Rice and Havertz and Timber, like these are players that should help us see out a season. I see them as season finishers.
Yeah.
Without them, we would collapse again potentially towards the end, right?
Yeah, and I think with the layers we've added to the squad, I think you'll see last season we had to go to the 90th minute often to win games, right? And it happened early. Like it happened in the Fulham game. There's another game that's escaped me, but it was in the first half of the season.
Was it the Leeds game as well, where we almost gave away the penalty at the end? And
it was like, but I think there's going to be a level of authority with this Arsenal team over sustained periods now, in my opinion. And as a result, like not needing to exert that a level of energy and exhaustion right to the final minute early in the season will then leave space energy-wise later in the season where we really come into our own. Like City, March, April, that's when they come into their groove. And I think that's what you're going to see with this Arsenal team this season. I think we'll get the job done early in the season without needing to go 100 miles an hour. But yeah, general feelings from me, if you couldn't tell, excitement, optimism, and confidence.
Very bullish. Just on the top
Very
four
bullish.
stuff, as you say, obviously there's been talk of us not getting top four and people saying we overperformed our expected numbers last season.
I've got something to say on that as well when you're done.
Yeah, no, definitely, because I do want to address that point specifically. But yeah, obviously this talk of kind of that we'll go back to our mean and that we overperformed, etc. I had a look at this probabilities from 21st Group, and they have a graph and it shows you like a percentage projection of title, top four, and relegation.
Okay.
Right now, they have Man City at 63% for title, Arsenal 12%, Liverpool 12%, United 4%, Newcastle 3%, Chelsea 2%, and so on. For top four, they have Man City is over 99% and Arsenal at over 99%.
Yeah.
Liverpool is then 63% for top four, United 37%, Newcastle 30%, Chelsea 26%, Tottenham 24%. So
yeah, that's wild.
This talk of kind of like they collapsed those 2 months, so like, you know, what we're going to base their entire season on, it doesn't account for like the spread betting markets, the actual probability projections, the algos, like all the data that is
all
in
the
sports
data-led
today.
stuff.
Yeah, all the data in the sport says that it is sustainable.
Yeah.
Now, it still says City are the clear favourites to Goliath we must slay to win.
Yeah.
But just from a pure top four perspective, I just think it's a bit premature that people think that because now we'll play in the Champions League, we will therefore miss out on top four. Like, that does not make sense to me. That we've deepened and improved the squad that did very well last year, and each year has gotten better. So, like, maybe there's a bit of a drop off at points, but I just don't understand this idea. So, and then just on the overperformance, going back to what you were saying. So, I spoke to Gabe on Net That Hall, and he made a good point about this, but I think it is fair to
What
raise
did he
this.
say? Because I do like Gabe.
Yeah, so what I said was something I'd seen, which is obviously people said United underperformed their attacking numbers. So, you know, now that like Bruno will have a striker to target, they should revert to like actually meeting their underlying numbers. So let's say they scored like 55 goals for the sake of argument, but they were projected 67 goals. Arsenal scored, let's say, 15 goals more than they were predicted. When I then looked at Man City, they overperformed the goals they scored to the underlying goals number by the exact same number of goals as us.
But no one's talking about it.
Saying that they overperformed their XG. They're now going to drop off.
That was going to be my point.
So yeah, so that was kind of the main thing I thought. But then Gabe did make a valid point, which is that with City, they've proven time and time again that they are capable of overperforming these numbers because these are world-class players, world-class finishers. So then the question comes in, like Saka, someone who they say definitely overperformed, like he got a lot more goals and assists than his underlying numbers showed. The question is, do you think Saka's world-class? Because if he is, then he will be more clinical and he will finish more than the numbers say he should get. And, you know, for years, for 4 or 5 seasons, Son overperformed his XG.
Exactly.
And everyone said it was because he was world-class.
Yeah.
No one said he's going to drop off.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I feel like when, let's just take Son's first season where he overperformed his XG. I feel like XG back then wasn't as ingrained in our language as football fans. I feel like now it's become the norm, but back then it wasn't, right? And I feel like if it was Son's first season where he overperformed it, the conversation back then, if XG was part of our everyday language then, would have been, oh, is this sustainable? It's one of those, I always say, football fans, really, like the average football fans struggle to proactively see anything beyond them. Everything is reactive and looking at past data. Why is it that Saka, Martinelli, these players that are so young, like, why can't people comprehend they can get better? This isn't their ceiling. Like, they're not just staying at this level.
Like year on year, we've seen them improve with our own eyes, right?
Yeah.
And they're years before the prime age for their positions on the pitch. And
don't get me, Sorry, go on.
No, but and I think the other side of it is like you look at the dynamics of the right hand side when Saliba was out. He's so pivotal to our build up play, that first phase of the build up. And yeah, obviously having Rob Holding there instead means that Saka might suffer a bit from like the numbers. And yeah, Saka did get burnt out. There was no cover for him. There's probably still no cover for him. And he will play nearly every game as much as he can because Arteta wants to bed that into him that the world-class players play every game.
Yeah.
And that they just do it. And he said the same. They asked him about what about these tackles you get, players don't get carded. And he said, yeah, that's all well and good. I'm not going to moan about that. It won't get me anywhere with the refs. He said, I just need to get even better.
Yeah.
Because, you look at like Messi, you look at these players, they're always doubled and tripled up on, but they still pull it off.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping to see Saka keep improving. And I think with Saliba back and giving that right-hand side a bit more stability again, having new options like Havertz coming in at the back post and Saka being able to, cut into his left foot and swing it into the back post. Like we have different ways to create. I feel like we had a plan A last year. And if we couldn't crack the nut, then we couldn't do anything. Whereas now it genuinely feels like we can change the game based on, is it an opponent that's pressing us? Is it an opponent sitting in a deep block? Like we actually have different options. And so I'm of the belief that I think Saka's already world-class personally, and I think he will get better. So yes, maybe you'd say some of his numbers drop off, but I wouldn't say that's because he's reverting to the mean. I'd say that's just because we're spreading out the goals more because we can create from more places now.
See, and I'd flip it and say, okay, fair enough. Like he overperformed his XG. What if his XG itself increases? What if he's getting himself into even more opportunities?
That's what I'm thinking. So my question is, why would his goals drop to the XG of last year if he's getting better and he could make his XG better next year?
Exactly. And it's like it's all narrative driven.
And it's what you said. We're looking at the past, and yes, it's helpful to look at the future through the lens of the past, but you can't predict the future.
But there's
from
context
the past.
to everything. Yeah. And like even what I'm throwing back to that argument, that's also a narrative. I'm conscious of that, but it's one I'm doing that because it feels like there's only one way of thinking about things, and it's like, oh, he overperformed his XG last season, therefore he's going to revert to the mean. And it's like I've not actually seen this other lens thrown at all. It's like, okay,
that he could improve, yeah, and that his underlying numbers will go up. It will have like his overall XGI, like expected goal involvement, goals and assists, must have been like 15, but he got like 25 or something.
What if his XGI next season is 22?
Yeah.
Then what?
And then if he only gets 20 goal contributions, do we then say he underperformed?
Exactly. And I just think
what's going on?
I don't really like expected assists as a metric because I think, not that I dislike it, I just think it's harder to put a lot of weight in it because there's a lot of variance that comes through that, and yeah, it can be subject to interpretation and stuff. But XG, like that is all about your ability to get into goal scoring areas, right? This guy is so young. He's only going to improve with that. Martinelli's only going to improve with that. Havertz, I think, is going to better Granit Xhaka's total output from last season. You mentioned on the City pod about like the variety of strength. What was it? The variety of height we've got from set pieces in Declan Rice. Like, I think we're going to add more goals from set pieces. I think like Jesus, like there's so much variance in finishing. Jesus could suddenly outperform his XG this season. Like, is it likely? Probably not, but you never know. And I don't know. I just think
it is funny that we have the two biggest underperformers of XG in the Premier League in the last few years in Havertz and Jesus.
Second Havertz, yeah. I don't know. My thing is, Arteta has spoken about for a while the whole 100 goal mark, right? And I think just forget XG for a second. I just think it's, can you see a split in, like, if that's the target, 100 goals, where does it come from? I think we've got enough variety in the team to try and get as close to that as possible. And I just think it's one of that. There's so much variance in finishing. It's just, can you as a team create enough scenarios where you're comfortable by probability you will score enough goals? And I think absolutely by a country mile. And I just think this whole thing around everyone at Arsenal is going to revert to their mean is just a bit lazy, in my opinion. And then I've said
I understand
this before,
if this was like a 33-year-old player who you think has reached their ceiling and cannot develop further, but to say that about 21-year-olds, like, it's a bit wild.
Yeah, and I've used this in a transfer context before, where like I feel like fans will look at teams that are recruiting and like, oh yeah, they're going to improve. and they'll look at a team like Arsenal and okay, our transfer recruitment has been phenomenal. But even without that, I'm trying to think of an analogy. I love analogies. So a team that recruits players, right? People automatically assume they go up a level. They go from like a 6 to an 8 just because there's new blood. Why is it that it's not accepted that a team that is the exact same, but the players' ages all go up by 1 or 2 years, that in itself can sometimes be the same impact as new signings, just in terms of their competence, their aptitude, their learning. Like, think of anything in life, you learn, and then you start to process it and you see the outcome. Like, I feel like people just forget, like,
I think a
you
lot of
can
it's
improve.
engagement farming as well. Obviously, with the changes to Twitter, or X as it's otherwise known now, people get paid out for impressions on tweets, and
Yeah.
people will kind of say anything these days just to kind of get that ad revenue from the impressions through outrageous statements.
Yeah.
I actually made a comment about Ten Hag spending £400 million in 16 months or something, or 14 months, sorry.
I hope they
And
better challenge for the title, right?
that's what I said, because we were told we must challenge for the title. We're a failure. And then I was told, oh, this isn't fair. He didn't get to implement his style last year. It's only year 2. He can only now implement it with the newer signings, etc., etc. I said, look, if you buy a striker, like, what other position do you need to strengthen? Like, is there any other priority signings you need? Because I've been told you have the best player in every position. So why shouldn't you? Like, do you expect to? People got a bit salty. And they went back to
I
the
need to see
standard
this. I've not seen.
Yeah,
Was
I
this
got to
on
send
Twitter,
it to you.
did you say?
Yeah, there was some mudslinging thrown back. It was on Odds on FPL's tweet somewhere. And a lot of United fans got riled up about, you guys won nothing, you achieved nothing. The FA Cup you won was with Emery's squad. It wasn't Arteta's squad. He basically got given a trophy. He didn't even have to go to the final and beat teams together.
Have people forgotten who we played on that run?
I know. So I entertained these people, and I actually replied to a lot of them. I was like, look, I'm not having a dig. I'm asking, I want to know, like, do you guys expect or think you should challenge? And in the end, some of these people, these keyboard warriors and trolls, actually ended up having civil discussions. At first, they continued their mud flinging.
Right.
And eventually I was like, look, dude, like, if all you want to do is say banter, like, then there's nothing really to say here. I was looking for a discussion. And they were like, okay, but what about this? And then we had a real discussion.
Okay.
And some of them, we ended up following each other after. And they were like, wow, this is crazy.
Love story.
Like, they were like, this is like the only good interaction I've ever had on football Twitter. I was like, yeah, that's because I'm from fucking FPL Twitter, mate.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not from football Twitter.
I was like, whatever team I support, I still want to understand the mechanics of these other teams so that I can like know who are the good. I was like, I try to not be as biased if I can.
Yeah.
And something to say about United, for example, right? I'm talking about players getting better. Did they not just invest in potential? Like, Højlund could become incredible, but the guy scored 9 goals last year and he got bought for 80 million. So what? Do they not think he can get better? If not, then why did they buy him? So in the same vein, why can't Martinelli and Saka get better is my conclusion there.
The thing that on the like Man United and spending versus us and our spending, like the way I think of it is on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is your team's level of being the absolute best. The squad Arteta took over, in my opinion, was like a 3-4 out of 10. The squad that Ten Hag took over, in my opinion, was like a 6-7. Okay, 6, not 7. And
yeah, I'd agree. I think it was in a better position, right? The year before, they'd come second. They added Cristiano Ronaldo. They were meant to go win a title with OGS. Like, this was a team that was built to challenge for a title and came second just 2 years before.
It's like the average football fan's inability to add context to anything. They just look at like raw facts and that's it. They've got no ability to like add layers of context to anything. And that's why for me, it's like you look at their spending, you look at ours, it's like we had more work to do to get to being a title challenger, in my opinion. And that's why, like, and I need to get.
Well, they were telling me there's been no improvements since took over, and I said, "So are you telling me 8th to 5th to 2nd is not an improvement?" They were like, "Oh yeah, it is, but like you didn't win anything."
And again, they're not winning anything. Like it's
so outcome biased.
Yeah, we haven't won anything, but are we one of the best set teams to challenge City and do well in wider Europe for the next few years? Absolutely, yes. And like, I think I need to get this off my chest because this has been pissing me off for a while, this whole narrative around our spending. Yes, we've spent a lot, but these same people were saying that when Arteta took over, we had a mid-table team. To get to top 4, we need to spend.
They said we'd get relegated.
Literally. And it's like, if you look at I may have this wrong, so I need to fact check this, but like, if you look at the spending per player, I think it equates to like 30 million per transfer.
Well, before this summer, we'd not spent over 50 million on a single player, and that was Ben White.
Yeah, but even if you look at the total spent divided by the amount of players we've signed, I think I saw like the average is 30 million per player, and like we bought a whole new squad. So again,
We
it's
got
like a
8 new backline. Our backline from 4 years ago is 8 different defenders
like
to what we started with.
I don't get it. Like when he took over, neutrals were saying, and back then no one was talking about this guy getting us to being title challengers. It was about getting in the top four. So and everyone was saying this guy needs to spend to like completely revamp the squad. And suddenly we've revamped the squad. How dare he? Like I don't. It
I
doesn't.
think this summer really triggered them. Rice was always thought to go to Chelsea. No one last summer would have ever predicted we'd pull off the most expensive ever British signing. You know, if you told me a season ago that this summer Bayern Munich would try to buy Timber, Raya, and Havertz and Rice,
And they want Arsenal.
and they want us, City, they say they just bid to ride up. City don't fucking bid for players they don't want. They don't bid 90
No,
mil
that's
for a
such
player they don't
bollocks.
want.
I
That
don't
is
get
total
that.
bollocks. Yeah. So they
Yeah.
bid for him, but they saw that he was clearly intent on us. And once we went in with that final bid that was way above what they'd bid, they weren't going to match it when they don't have guarantees from the player he even wants to come.
No.
So again, the other thing to think about is the new signings themselves. They're coming and adjusting to a new system. They got to learn a lot. And Rice said, like, he's learned so much in the last 3 weeks from Arteta. Like, he's had to rethink football.
How we see
Like,
football,
yeah,
yeah.
like he just complete. And I think again, we expect like people to come in and instantly hit the ground running. But just like our younger players who are improving, I think not enough emphasis is put on coaching. They just think like Arteta's
Yeah.
a PE
That's
teacher.
it. Yeah.
But he can develop these players. He's been doing it since he was at City. Like, players like Sane, Sterling, Stones, they all credit him as helping improve their attacking play. He was the one who moved Zinchenko into an inverted fullback from midfield. Like, he was the one who took David Silva from a winger and made him a center mid. Like, this is a manager who's very intelligent. And again, they don't like him because they say his touchline antics are rude and he's too passionate for
It's
them.
insecurity. I think everyone knows deep down what's on the horizon, and it's copium, right? Like,
But did they say this about, Mourinho and Guardiola and Klopp when they're running up and down the touchline screaming their heads
no,
off?
true.
That was passion. They were happy to see passion. But
Yeah,
when
it's
it's
true.
us, the police are out. They're all out with the
Yeah.
sirens, like trying to arrest Arteta. Like, it's wild. It's fucking wild, honestly.
With all that in mind, then, what are your? Should we go expectations and predictions, or just expectations?
Yeah, no, I think let's start with the expectations. Yeah, let's and then we'll talk about the Forest game from here. But so
Yeah.
season predictions, I think will include the cups and the Premier League, similar to last year, what we thought would happen. So
I guess let's start with expectations, because predictions are hard, right? Like, there's so much that can dictate that. But like, what do you expect of this Arsenal squad for the upcoming season?
So
And then I guess you can say what you think is realistic and stuff, I guess.
So I expect, like, I'd want to see us challenge again. So
What does a challenge look like in your eyes?
So we can't finish below second for me. Not after what we've done. I know other teams have caught up a little bit with their own summers, but I'd like to see, like, essentially, I want to see us be able to do back-to-back challenges. So I'm not expecting us to win, but I don't want to let like Man City walk it and have won the league by February, March. I want us to be there or thereabouts till the end again. Like, in May, we were first for a day. So, like,
That's
like,
gonna get clipped.
yeah. Well, we were first for a day, right? And like, again, like you told me that last summer that, in May, Arsenal will be top of the Premier League at some point. That would have sounded like delusion.
Yeah.
So I just don't want to see that the addition of like Champions League on a Tuesday and Wednesday night means that like we can't continue to compete. Like, I don't even want, like, for me, the expectation is the top four is not even a conversation because we just steamroll it. That's my expectation. And I'd want to challenge all the way to the end in the Prem. From a Champions League point of view, I would really like to see us get to the quarterfinals. I think just to lay a marker, get to those final 8 teams in Europe and see what happens, right? Anything can happen in a cup competition.
Just before you move on, so far you said title challenge, quarters in the Champions League. Points on the board in the league, what would you expect or think we're capable of?
So a lot of it is dependent on injuries to like key players, like I guess Saliba and Saka and these guys, Rice. But if you kind of assume everyone was fit, I would look to better our points tally. That would be my expectation. So I think we got 84 points, right?
So you think 84 is the floor now?
That's what I would hope. Well, I'd say, yeah,
Yeah,
being realistic. Yeah, being
I'm
realistic.
pinning you to this after
No,
you've
no, no,
bottled it
but
on the above average pod.
yeah, no, 84 is like what I'm expecting. But if I was to say like realistically,
Yeah, go on.
I wouldn't be shocked if we dropped to like 79 points and lost another 5 points.
So do you actually believe that then?
If we get past the quarterfinals, I would
Sure.
take it. So for me,
Okay.
it's very dependent on the competition. Like, say you win the Champions League and you're like finish on 80 points, I don't really care.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
But if we're gonna only get to like the quarters, and I say only, but that's huge.
Yeah,
If we can get there, then 84 is kind of like what I'm comfortable saying is my expectation.
Sure. And
Because
then
we've beaten each year's points tally for a few years now, right? I just want
yeah,
to keep up that same momentum in the club.
yeah, sure. And then domestic cups.
I would like to win an FA Cup. I don't really care for the Carabao, but
Do you think we've got the squad to go and get to the Champions League quarters, challenge for the title, and win a domestic cup? Or do you think that might be a bit of a stretch?
that's where the 79 points comes from.
Sure.
I think if we do manage to stay in the FA Cup, the Carabao, the Champions League, I think that will start to take a toll eventually.
Okay.
But I'd say for the FA Cup, I would like to think that even before the draws are done, that we're like obviously maybe not the favorites, but like we're in the top 2 or 3 favorites for that trophy, I'd say.
Yeah, you'd think so.
So I'd be quite concerned if we're getting knocked out like round 3, round 4. Like I'd want us to lay a marker and try to go the whole way in that cup for sure.
Yeah, interesting. Do you want to hear mine then?
Yeah, go on. Let's see how different it might be.
So
Treble on the way, yeah?
well, no, basically, for me, similar to you in terms of the league, I still think City are the best team in the league. I think we've bridged the gap though, personally. I don't think that the gap is as big as everyone's making out. And I still think, like, I'm acknowledging I think City are better, but I'm just going to say, for the sake of argument, it's us and City as the top 2. I still think there's a gap. I don't think Liverpool have bridged the gap, personally. I think that's a big turnaround in that midfield. I still think they can be played through fairly easily. I don't think their defense has improved. I think that's that. Chelsea, I think, will do well and kind of challenge for top 4. I struggle to see them going from like 12 to a title challenge in one window, but I don't know. Basically, long story short, I still think it's City and Arsenal and then a gap. United, I think, will get near, but I still think it's like there'll be a gap between whoever's third and Arsenal and City, personally. Leading on to what I think about us. So what I said earlier about the layers that I think this squad has got, I still don't think people comprehend just how deep the level of quality goes in this squad now. I think we said earlier about we had a plan A last season, right? I think we've got down to plan E now in terms of actual competency in the first team. I think there's so many variations in tactical combinations and relationships we can tweak and like really flex the muscles in the squad where we've still got enough on the pitch that can beat most of the opponents in the league. I'm going to reference last season. We got to 50 points in 19 games. We were relentless. In my opinion, the only reason we didn't win the league was the Saliba injury. I genuinely believe that. And like I said earlier, I think we've completely eradicated single points of failures. And I think the layers in terms of the depth now is of first team quality. We had 13, 14 first team level players in the squad last season. I genuinely think we're at a level where it's 17, 18 now. And I think the variation we've got there, I'm comfortable with. So with that in mind, that's kind of setting the context. I would be very disappointed if we put less than 90 points on the board in the league, regardless of how we do in other competitions, because I just think we've got that level of depth and quality to beat every team in the league. I genuinely believe that. For me, it's, kind of get your 90 points minimum. I think this team is capable of stretching to that 95 point mark. I don't think it will take that amount to win the league this season, because I think the level of the top 10 is a joke. Like, I think the level of the top 10 in the league is really, really high now. So I think it will be between 90, 95 that wins the league. But I do think we're capable of getting 95 on the board. I really do. Champions League, like you, my floor is I'd be disappointed if we didn't get to the quarters. And like that's not to say that's not a big achievement. I think it's,
It
again,
might be the trauma though of so many years of fucking last 16
but
against Bayern and
that's
Barca.
got
And like, I
nothing to
just,
do with anything now,
but
though.
that's what I mean. So I
Yeah.
want this squad to show that that's not a burden they carry. They're not those
Yeah.
same players. This is a new project, a new squad, a
Yeah.
new manager. Like they are hungry winners who want to go and win everything in world football. And they reference this, right? These players in their interviews say like Arsenal isn't about top four. It's
Yeah.
about winning trophies. It's about getting that Champions League. Like, and I hope that that hunger shows, which is why I think that kind of last 16, I just want to get that monkey off our shoulder, if that makes sense, even though it doesn't relate to the current squad.
Agreed. And yeah, and that's what I think we are capable of getting to the quarters. And my stretch target, I don't think aiming to get to the final is out of reach. I genuinely think, like, a lot, again, it's people haven't seen this Arsenal team go and do anything yet. So they're completely dismissing what they're capable of. Every Arsenal fan knows what this team is capable of. We're just too shy to actually put ourselves on record and say, like, every single Arsenal fan deep down knows how fucking special this squad is and how good we are. We're just shy. That's it. Like, we don't, and we're scared of getting abused or being labeled deluded by. I don't give a fuck. I'm happy to put myself out there. Like, genuinely.
I love it.
But it's not delusion in my head. Like, it may be seen as that, but it's genuinely what I believe. I'm not saying it for the sake of it. It's genuinely,
which is what some people do, right? They say things for clicks. You're actually backing your conviction with context and why you think it.
Like, and yeah, to some people it may be delusion, and I'm happy to be challenged, but it's my genuine feelings and belief. And I'll caveat by saying I've not always said this about Arsenal teams. There's been Arsenal teams that everyone was saying, oh, they're nailed for top four. I was like, no, we're going to finish like 7th, 8th. So I'm very
What's funny
honest.
is we're like almost the opposite, because back in the last years of the Wenger days, every season I thought we'd win the Premier League. Like, no matter how shit we were. So I was always like that. But now that we're actually good, now I'm too shy to be like, I think this squad could do it.
But yeah,
so we're like almost the opposite. You've seen that we are good and you're backing that. Whereas when we were shy, I was like somehow deluded enough to think this was the year it would all change. This was the year it would all fucking fix itself.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm always very honest, and I do get labeled biased sometimes, but it's honest opinions. And I think, unfortunately, we weren't really around in the social media era when we were crap, but I used to call it then.
Let's when we go to Forest from here.
Just very, very quickly, just to summarize. So basically, I want 90 to 95 points on the board in the league. Quarterfinals minimum Champions League, and I think we're capable of going far, and I want to win a domestic cup. And one of my outlandish predictions, I don't think this will fully come to fruition in terms of end goal, but I think in March we will be doing so well in multiple competitions that there will be conversations around, are Arsenal potentially going for a treble? I don't think it will go on to happen, but I think remember that potentially,
and just see what the conversation and chatter is in March.
If we're in the quarters in the Champions League, if we're top of the league or second within 3 points, if we've either won the Carabao Cup or still in the FA, I don't know. I just think this squad is deeper in quality than people think, and will go very.
And I think a lot of those players, those partnerships in the kind of all the way to Plan E, as you mentioned, they're just going to continue to thrive, and the positional play and the partnerships and the chemistry between the players is still yet to be settled. And I think for the first few weeks or months, we may even see that, we're going to try and win by whatever means necessary in games. We might not quite play the way we saw last year and just full throttle through teams, but that's because we're learning and experimenting so that when it comes to the end of the season this time,
that's what
every plan is perfected, every possible route is perfected, and we've used the start of the season to adjust for that. We still can't drop many points at the start, but if City start slow, which is what their preseason is implying, we could maybe drop 2 points in the first few weeks or so. But even then, the margin is very fine with this bloody City team, isn't it?
I just think people are overlooking it. Gundogan's a massive person to replace, personality, leadership-wise, and his actual competency on the pitch. Like Mahrez, he has key spells in that City team in periods. They sold someone else. Vardy
is probably on the way.
Yeah, Vardy was a brilliant signing, but I don't know. I just think there's enough there to suggest that keep an eye on him. I don't think it's going to be as relentless as people think. And I've said this before. psychologically, when you win the treble at the top level, how do you motivate yourself to stay at that level? Because it's pure subconscious. I firmly believe your level drops 1 or 2% in just day-to-day sharpness, and at the top level, it's those fine margins. So I yeah, keep an eye on them.
Sounds good. All right, cool. Let's have a quick look at the lineup that we had against City again. Obviously, the assumption here is that this is close to the 11 that will play against Forest on Saturday. I think the only question mark for me still is, could Havertz play at left centre mid and only one of Rice or Partey starts at the 6, which then allows Trossard or Eddie to play up top? That's kind of my main debate is, do we need Partey and Rice against Forest at home? I don't know. But equally, Partey's been so good in pre-season. How could he not start? And then if he starts, then do we just give Havertz another run at the false 9 and see what he can do there? So, like, do we just stick to something that worked against City, or do we keep experimenting as we look to build these partnerships in the first few weeks? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. We should caveat we're pre-recording this on Tuesday lunchtime, right? So things could change in the week injury-wise and stuff. But with the information we've got now, I feel like the back five is set, I think it will be that again. I don't think Zinchenko will be available for selection, so I think it'll be the same back five: Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber. Midfield, I'm kind of reverse engineering it, so I feel like you kind of start with who you think the 6 will be. Odegaard picks himself as one of the 8s. So for me, I just think I agree with you. Partey has been very good on the ball in pre-season, and yeah, he just looks very good. I don't think we quite need Partey and Rice, but it feels mad to leave Partey out given how he's been playing and then leave Rice out. So for that reason, I think he will just go for the same team again, but that feels harsh on Trossard, and it's one of those where against Forest at home, can we try Rice holding Odegaard, Havertz either side of him in the 8s, Trossard or Nketiah up top? So it's one of those.
You could have the whole first 10, and then the striker could still be Eddie or Trossard. Like, Havertz could just maybe
I
not
just think
start.
I
There's just so many options. Like last year, it felt like you could list the 11 apart from the fullback every week.
yeah.
This year, it's like there's genuine question marks in a lot of positions.
The reason I think Havertz, if he's not playing in the 8, will carry on up front is I think he was very good. And I think it's one of those after a performance. This is hard to psychoanalyze, but he seems like the kind of guy that kind of needs confidence and an arm around the shoulder sort of thing. So I feel like if he, in my opinion, played well against City on Sunday and then he's out of the 11, I don't think that's great. And it's a Premier League home debut. I feel like those sort of factors, he'd kind of.
That makes me think that all 3 of the new signings should start. Obviously, Timber, we're saying, is nailed at left back while Zinchenko's out. So then maybe there is a while Zinchenko's out, I think he is. Yeah.
I think
just for the first couple of games, but Zinchenko did play like 11 minutes in the game for Ukraine, and obviously he's close to being back. So I don't know what happens to Timber after that. But for the home debut, as you say, I would expect Havertz, Rice, and Timber all to start. So for me, the question mark is, does Partey get left out?
Partey, right?
Yeah, and if he gets left out, that leaves a spot for Trossard or Eddie up top.
Yeah, it's one of those. Basically, I would not be surprised if, like we spoke about the back five, I'd not be surprised if it's Rice, Odegaard, Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, Trossard, or Nketiah. But my prediction is I think he's just going to go same team as
Sunday. The full 11. Just get them to get into the rhythm with each other, yeah.
I think so. And then if we're struggling in like tight spaces to break him down, you can take off like a Partey, put Rice sitting, Havertz 8, get Trossard on, who's great in tight spaces. But yeah, my prediction is same 11 as it is on Tuesday afternoon.
So how about score predictions then for the
match? Was your prediction the same then? Yeah. As it stands?
The only question mark for me is Gabriel got subbed off early, and I don't know if that was pre-planned. So without the presser to know like Gabriel's fitness, which is the precautionary sub, if Gabriel was out, obviously I would change my lineup. But without that news, I would go with the 11, yeah.
Sure. Interesting. And then obviously for everyone that's listening or watching, keep an eye on Emma's page at Jump the Wave. The Hive Mind's back this season. So yeah, keep an eye out for all of the Arsenal predicted lineups. And we're 2 of the people that contribute to that as well.
That'll be fun again this season. So score predictions, I think we get a clean sheet, and I think we score at least 3 goals. So my floor for this match is 3-0 Arsenal, statement win on opening day.
Nice. So is that the prediction, 3-0?
I'll go with that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm going for the exact. So we're starting the season exact same, 3-0 to the Arsenal, I think.
Hopefully we get a score prediction right here as well.
Yeah, that would be nice to start the season. Who do you think will be on the score sheet?
That's a good question. Let's who will be on the score sheet?
What was the stat you said in the City Pod about like Forest and set pieces?
So it's not just Forest, but it's like 6 or 7 of the first 8 opponents are like bottom for chances conceded or goals conceded from set pieces. And we're obviously one of the better teams at scoring from set pieces last
And
year.
we've added height.
And we've added height. And then we have a set piece coach who's designated. They clearly work on creative routines in the training ground. I am expecting 1 goal from a corner.
Me too.
I'm expecting a Saka bullet on his left foot.
A Saka bullet, okay.
Yeah. From the the one where he does it from the tight angle into the roof.
Yeah.
I'm looking for one of those this game, and I'm looking Havertz goal. So I'm thinking Havertz, Saka, and I'll give that last goal to. I'd said set piece goal, so it would have to be Gabriel, but I want to say Martinelli for the 3rd goal.
Okay, so similar to Palace last season then. Like Zinchenko heads it across, Timber heads it across, Martinelli in the middle.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Martinelli, Saka, Havertz as the goal scorers.
I'm going 2 for Havertz, 1 from a set piece. Havertz is going to score from a corner, and then another from open play, and then Saka, I think, as well.
I did want to say Havertz brace. I'd love to see the salty tears on the timeline.
He's in my FPL team as it stands.
I'm starting to get hyped up on him. Arteta was very glowing in his interview about his performance.
He'll do really well this season.
So I'm getting a call on Zoom, so I better go. But it's been a pleasure. We will be back with the instant reaction of the Forest game, of course, and then we'll put a tweet out for some timings for the full review of that match. But yeah, otherwise, it's been a pleasure to see you as always, Clayton.
Nice one.
It's nice to get the season going again, and we'll chat soon.
I can't wait for the pelters for my predictions. I'm being biased, but up the Arsenal. We're going to win the treble.
Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.